Okay, welcome to the Women in Publishing Summit. I'm Alexa Bigwarf, your host, and today we're going to talk about a topic that everybody wants to know about, which is how to hit the big bestseller lists. Today we're talking specifically about hitting the USA Today bestseller list, which is something that most authors dream about doing. I am speaking with Alinka Rutkowska, who is a USA Today bestselling author, a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, and a top 100 Amazon bestselling author in business and money. And that is no easy accomplishment. She's sold more than 100,000 copies of her books, and her book creation process has been showcased in Entrepreneur magazine. Easier to do than say sometimes. She's the CEO of Leaders Press and has launched all its titles to bestseller status. She's also the founder of Library Bub, which connects independent authors with 10,000 plus librarians. She's a sought-after lecturer and has been voted top 5 speaker and named the most creative book marketer at the Bestseller Summit Online. And she is a friend and a repeat speaker at the Women in Publishing Summit. And I'm so glad to have you here with us today to talk about this topic. Thank you for taking time out to share your tips.
Thank you, Alexa. And this is the book, if you guys can see it. And this is Alexa here in this book. So you're a USA Today Wall Street Journal bestselling author as well.
That's right. It was a very exciting process. So it'll be interesting to talk through this because the tactic that we used is not the tactic that everyone is going to use, but I'm sure you have some kind of global advice that you can give to people. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about that book and how you came up with your plan, what your plan was, and how we got there.
Well, it started with a dream, like many achievements. And first it sounded very remote and almost unattainable. So it remained in the dream sphere for a while. I just wanted to have the title, to be a USA Today bestselling author. Now you have to realize that you can become a USA Today bestselling author when you do multi-author launch, and maybe you don't even do too much. You just, participate and offer a chapter and everybody else does the work. And then you can call yourself a USA Today bestselling author for life. So it's an accolade that you can use. And it doesn't mean that you're, selling a lot of books necessarily. You might just, be invited, do it once, and that's it. So, it's a really cool title to have. And I thought, like, even though I had already sold more than 100,000 books, to be on the Wall Street or to be on the USA Today bestselling list, you need to sell about 6,000 copies in a week in the US. So, that takes specific effort, and that's a lot of copies during a week.
Yeah.
But part of figuring out how to actually have this title was to understand what the requirements were. So, now because I sort of mentioned that, it's just 1 week. You hit the list in 1 week and you have that title. So I think it's important to understand the requirements if you want it. It's a title that you can always use. For me, it's useful because, this is what I do. Yeah. I help turn authors' ideas into best-selling books. So having this title really just makes conversations easier. People don't ask, where do you come from? What do you do? Why would I want to work with you? It gives them this wow effect. It's a great conversation starter to then, answer all the other questions that are, more profound and more meaningful. But it's a great thing, people are like, oh, wow, USA Today or Wall Street Journal. I like that too, so let's chat. And that's why it's useful.
Well, and just to say here, because we do have a lot of our audience who is just getting into the process or thinking about writing a book. So I want to put things into perspective for you. I'm sure the stats are starting to change a little bit because self-publishing has been around longer and there are some people doing some really amazing things. But for a long time, the stat was that most self-published authors will never sell more than 100 books in the lifetime of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking 6,000 sales in 1 week. That is not easy, which is why I think your idea to do it as a collaborative launch where you have now 24 people marketing the heck out of a book was so genius. I mean, it was just genius. Hopefully 24 people marketed the heck out of the book. But, like you said, though, even if only 10 of them did it, it still is going to be a lot easier than one person with no platform on their first book. A lot easier. You worked your butt off. I watched this whole thing as she maneuvered it. But okay, so now we've put it into perspective of this is not just an easy thing. Oh, I just have to sell 6,000 books in 1 week. Because until you've tried it, you're like, okay, that's massive.
Yeah, when you just get started with a book, you assume that as soon as you publish it, you're going to sell 1 million copies because it's such a great book. And then, you struggle to sell 10, and then, you really start wondering, questioning yourself, etc. So it is, way more than the average book sold. So let's talk about the requirements, to even get started. That was the first thing we had to research, right?
Yes.
I had to research, if I want to be a USA Today bestselling author, what do I need to do?
Right.
So it was around 6,000 sales during launch week. And it's not guaranteed because it's not an absolute number. Mm-hmm. It's to hit the list, you have to be among the top 150 most selling books that week. So if you have, multiple great sellers, right, you might not hit the list even with 6,000.
Right.
But generally, so the timing is also important. But generally, 6,000 sales should get you on the list. Now, pre-orders count. So this was a very important piece of information.
Yeah. You
can hit the USA Today list with a book that is out, that you've already published, if you sell 6,000 copies that week. But since pre-orders count, you can set your book for pre-order for 3 months. And then the week that the book goes live, those pre-orders that happen in the previous 3 months are counted towards the total for the week.
Uh-huh.
So that was part of our strategy to do it that way. Next, only US sales count. So, we've sold, when we were in the tens of thousands of books sold now, but only US sales count towards the USA Today bestselling list. Mm-hmm. And you need to have sales, more than 500 sales on a retailer other than Amazon. So, for example,
important to know.
Exactly. So, if you go with KDP Select, you will never hit the list with the ebook, right? Because you have to be on multiple platforms, multiple meaning at least 2. Mm-hmm. It must be a paid book, so minimum 99 cents. You can't do it with a free book. And it can be a solo book or it can be a box set. In our case, it was a solo book. Even though there were multiple authors, it was just one book. It wasn't a box set, but you can also do it with a box set. So these were the requirements. This is how we started, by understanding what needs to be done. And then we had to figure out how to do it.
Right. And that was a great strategy. So I can tell you from, so what she did was how to write and grow rich. So she reached out to other people in the publishing industry, writers, people doing all this stuff, and invited us to contribute a chapter. Well, first of us asked if we wanted to be involved, told us what her plan was, and then you mastered the entire process. So what if someone is trying to do this on their own? One, do you think it's possible for a first-time author to do this on their own? And what would be some of the things that they would have to, to sell 6,000 books, that's a lot of people.
I think it's possible for an author for a person who already has a large platform.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody who's an entrepreneur or some kind of influencer who already has a big list, a big network, then with your first book and with a structured launch, you can do that. I don't think any of the books on the Wall Street or on the USA Today list are there by chance,
Right.
because of luck.
Right.
There's a team of people behind each and every one of those. And if one, is there because of luck, it could be one, maybe.
Right.
And I would doubt it. 150 books among millions, available
Right.
for sale. That's really a fraction of the books that ever make it to the list. So I know for me, it was a 6 to 8 month process.
Mm-hmm.
I started getting people on board around February, March, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the launch was in October. So it was, and before that, I already, started thinking about the whole thing. So basically, you sort of asked me this question or mentioned this, you can think about how you can sell 6,000 books in a week, or you can start breaking it down by saying, well, what if it's not just me, selling 6,000 books? Let me pull my calculator here. So let's say 6,000 books, and we divide that by 24 people.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's 250 books a person has to sell.
Right.
And then you don't do it in a week, but you do it in 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
which is 90 days. And that's 3 books an author has to sell a day.
Which doesn't seem as bad.
Well, sell 3 books a day. I bet there's a lot of people who say, I am already selling 3 books a day.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're already selling 3 books a day, get together with 24 other people who are selling 3 books a day, put a book together, orchestrate this launch, and it's attainable,
Right.
Broken down like this, it's no longer the wow, 6,000. So, that's basically what we did, but it took a lot of effort. And it was probably a 20-80 thing, the Pareto principle.
Right.
It's probably 20% of, the people involved did 80% of the marketing.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe, I'm sure the other 80% who did the 20, helped us get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously some people were more involved, some people were less involved. But it was a collaborative effort, and you never know, one person less and we might not have, achieved this title.
Yeah, I think also, okay, so let's talk about the strategy then. So you talked about the pre-orders. When you were laying everything out, what was the strategy of, we used bonuses, and do you think that was an effective part of the marketing? Or do you think we would have, just on your opinion, obviously you can't tell, do you think we would have sold as many books without the bonus structure?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, so what we did, well, you can talk about it, but basically each of us provided a pretty nice bonus to anybody who pre-ordered the book. So just a little extra incentive, because pre-orders can be tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely fine to incentivize purchases right now. At the time of recording, it's no longer possible to incentivize reviews.
Right.
It was possible in the past, but it's not anymore. But you can still incentivize purchases. So it's aligned with Amazon's terms of service. You can offer a bonus to get people to buy a book. So that's what we did. And, we increased the value of the book from 99 cents, which, was the price of the book, to more than $5,000 because 24 people put in a bonus of around $200 or more. And we got a really nice package. So you get a book for 99 cents and you get $5,000 worth of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you had that set up for orders on, if I recall correctly, it was definitely Kindle, and then we had iBooks. Was there another pre-order place? Did you do Nook?
Yes, we did Nook, but we didn't achieve the 500 there. So what we did is we started first with just iBooks because we couldn't do such a long pre-order period with Amazon. So we did, Amazon only allows you 3 months, but iBooks allows you, an even longer pre-order period. So we started with iBooks, and the great thing that happened with just offering the book on one platform is that we achieved those 500 sales before ever launching on Amazon. So, many people, there are cases where people manage to sell 6,000 books, but they're not able to hit the 500 on another retailer. So at least that was one of the things that made us feel a little bit more comfortable when we were getting into launch week, because we already hit that goal, that part of the goal.
So the structure around, how did you set it up then, if you don't mind explaining to them, like how you made it so appealing? Because most of this, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Had we already hit the 6,000 in pre-orders prior to launch week, or did we hit it in launch week?
Okay, so let me see. I do have the numbers here somewhere. Okay. So, so October 1st, I think, was our launch week. So basically October 1st, the pre-orders plus the sales of the first day of launch, we had 5,215 US sales.
Super close.
Yeah.
Super close.
Then we had 813 on Tuesday, 349 on Wednesday, 400 on Thursday, 248 on Friday, 196 on Saturday, 166 on Sunday, for a total of 7,990. So only 10 books missing to 8,000. So 8,000 sales at the end of launch week. And with 8,000, we hit number 68 on the list.
That's awesome.
On the USA Today. And we hit number 6 on the Wall Street Journal list.
That's awesome. So that's important too, that usually you can hit multiple lists with numbers of sales like that, which is always very exciting. Okay, let's back up then and talk a little bit more about the strategy. So if someone is trying to figure out how to do this, we talked about the importance of numbers. If you don't have the platform, we talked about the importance of sweetening the pot with some type of incentive to get people to purchase within a certain window. How did you wrangle all the cats in? What was your strategy in terms of actually achieving this?
Well, there were requirements that every author had to agree to. So the requirements were the following. One was to contribute a chapter, and the word count was 2,000 to 2,500 words. So that multiplied by 24, we have a good sized book. Then a bonus worth $100 or more to incentivize purchases, and people offered generous bonuses, more generous than the requirement. So we ended up with having more than $5,000 of value of bonuses. Then heavy promotion between June 2nd and October 10th. So that's June, July, August, September. That's more than 4 months of promotion. And there were specific dates when people were supposed to mail, and we asked people to commit to those dates. So we had a specific calendar, which was for us June 2nd, July 14th, August 4th, September 1st, September 15th, September 29th, October 2nd, October 3rd, October 4th. So we had this calendar that people were aware of in advance, months in advance, so that they could block those dates on their calendars. And, everybody, I hope, everybody mailed. I provided the swipe. So, all the texts to send out to people. And, my main role after getting everybody on board was to keep everybody updated about the sales numbers, about what was happening, about, push again. I know you already sent 10 emails, but send the 11th one because this could mean us hitting the goal or not.
Right.
So really what I could do was communicate with people. And then we also lined up some people who were not in the book, but who promoted it to their list. So we got some influencers on board who promoted the book, because of the relationship that we had with them.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, that you don't, even if you're trying to do this on your own with a solo written book, like you don't have to rely on yourself. You can rely on networks and partnerships that you have with other people. So we had a couple of snafus thanks to Amazon. Do you want to talk about those or?
Sure, no problem. Yeah, we did. We had a few obstacles. Let's see. So one of the obstacles was that after a while, we already had 2,000 pre-orders within a few days when we launched the book. And I put in the title of the book that there are $5,000 in bonuses. And I had asked Amazon if I can do that, before releasing the book. And they said, you can name your book whatever you want. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, great. So I did that. And after several days, they pulled the book saying that you can't do that. And they canceled all the pre-orders, so more than 2,000 pre-orders. So, a lot of people could have just thrown in the towel saying, well, this is a sign that we're not meant to do this. But I managed to, get people excited about it again, and we didn't let go. It was, we've already put in so much work.
Right.
And we put the book together. We had the schedule. I think everybody was, excited about achieving this goal. And it was still early in the process. So I said, if this was supposed to happen, it's better that it happens now, that we still have several months to get back on track. So this wasn't great. I don't think it was fair because, I asked Amazon and I received that reply. But we just removed that and we were back in the game. So that was pretty much, that wasn't a great day for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard work. And you know what? The reality is that Amazon sets their own rules and they do whatever the heck they want to. And you'll find this in pre-orders, you'll find it in sales, you'll find it in reviews, that they'll just strip reviews for no apparent reason. And sometimes it's something ridiculous, like they've only reviewed one other product in their life. Well, what if they don't normally do reviews and this was the best book they ever read and want to leave a review, So
there are all kinds of situations. The interesting thing was that Amazon denied that they ever canceled. So they said that, I confirmed that your book is live. So I checked your sales and they're still showing. So they denied that they did it. Then I escalated it. So there was back and forth with Amazon. In the end, I wrote to Jeff Bezos, and I got a response from his team that they're trying to rectify the situation. And they said that they did something, but I don't really think that they did. It doesn't result in the number of sales.
Right.
But we managed to achieve our goal anyway, and I'm really happy. Just showed how persistent we were.
Yeah.
We stuck together. We had one person, back out after the cancellation. So one of the authors stopped promoting. This person, didn't want to remove their chapter. None of that. So didn't make it difficult for us, but they just stopped promoting because they were getting some bad emails some negative emails from their followers. Well, there was that. I left that silent. I didn't, want to demoralize the group.
Yeah.
It was their private decision. So, then in the end we were 23, and everybody claims the title anyway. So what I was saying before, you might end up, just sort of being there for the ride and still getting the title. But it's fine. Yeah. I think a lot of us are really happy with it, and we're leveraging it in our businesses. Absolutely. I see a lot of people added the title to their signatures, and are using it as marketing bragging rights, because that's what it is.
I mean, naturally, I added it to my bio like the second we achieved it, because it's huge. It's such a stamp. I mean, these things there's such a credibility stamp, to say that you are a USA Today best. Now, I do feel, I feel a little shy about promoting it, because I feel a little bit like, that I wasn't the mastermind behind it. I was just one person emailing my list about the book. I only wrote one of the chapters, like it does from that kind of perspective. But the reality is, most of us did help promote it. Most of us did send it out. Most of us resent the emails after all of them got canceled. Most of us ordered our own copies, and those types of things. So, I mean, why not?
That's the dream. That's the dream. I waited for months for somebody to invite me to a project like this one, but nobody wanted to do it. So I thought, well, I just have to, initiate it. I have to run it. And it's a collaborative project. So I don't feel the need to, go and try to hit the list solo. Some people hit the list with a group collaboration, and then they feel like, ooh, but so now I want to do it solo. I don't, because it was 6 months or 8 months of stress for me.
Yeah.
And so what? I mean, it's still the same title that I would get.
Yes.
I much prefer, shifting my focus on what really matters to me, which is helping others turn their book ideas into bestsellers, and making an impact like that, rather than, being focused on me. I need to, get it again. It was extremely stressful.
It is.
And I neglected other parts of my business because I was so focused on this. So when I saw that, I remember it was, the day that I saw that we hit the list, I started crying and shaking because it was just such an unbelievable, thing. I mean, we did it.
Yeah.
After all this time. And I remember the night before I couldn't sleep, and I had 2 sort of speeches prepared to send out to you guys. One that we didn't make it, and one that we did.
Uh-huh.
And so I was really happy that I could send out, the text where we made it. And after that, I could really focus, on my core business, and it really took off, just because my energy, my focus shifted to, my one thing. There's this book, Your One Thing. So, my one thing right now is helping entrepreneurs do books, helping them come up with a strategy, do books from scratch for them, launch it to bestseller. And then as a second thing, to help authors of all types of books to do marketing and launch their books to bestseller as well. But really a shift from me on the list to help others achieve their goals. And it's much more rewarding seeing, author after author hit the bestseller list on Amazon. It's more rewarding than, just seeing my own name on all those lists. So, I read the book, The Go-Giver, recently, and it's, changing your focus from me, what can I get, to how can I provide value to others. Mm-hmm. So I recommend that book, and maybe part of the peace that I have, the peace of mind comes from the fact that I achieved that goal that I had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am, I feel accomplished with that. So I am really happy.
Well, I'm glad that you invited me to participate because it was such an incredible learning process. First of all, I love having it in my bio now because it feels just like, wow. Wow. So thank you, because I know that you, oh my gosh, did you work hard on it? I mean, it was incredible watching you from behind the scenes and all the things you were doing. I mean, she made it sound like it wasn't that hard, but let me tell you, she had a group. She was constantly posting in there. She was constantly cheerleading and motivating. She was constantly sharing stuff for us to share. It's hard work to get 23 other people to find something that you find as important as you do. I see that with this summit. This is like my thing right now, but it's not everybody's. Like, it's not going to be as exciting to everybody else to share about it. But so I really, really commend you on that. And thank you so much for bringing me on the ride.
Well, thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, it was fun. And it was, like I said, it was such a tremendous learning experience, which for anybody else who has the opportunity, who's invited or wants to start something like this, like the learning experience alone is worth it, just on what we know now about how to do this. And we can help other people, at least move down the right steps. I'm curious, if you want to share this, you don't have to, but about how much money did you wind up spending in marketing?
I have this file somewhere. So we all contributed, and that was part of the requirements. Let me pull these requirements here. We all contributed $500 of ad spend. And yeah, so that was the final requirement. The chapter, the bonus to promote, and $500 of ad spend. And we spent a lot of it, almost all of it.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Almost all of it doing the various promotional activities. And then the rest of it I threw into ad spend, as well as the royalties that we're making now. I threw into ad spend, and so the book is on top of the charts, and we all have links to our landing pages. So we're all interested in having the books on top of the charts. It's 99 cents per book.
Right. So it's that's 30 cents a copy. Royalties. And then divide that by 24.
Right. So that just makes it really complicated to follow something like that and to send people a couple of dollars.
Right.
So this is not a for profit project. It was a for status project.
Right.
So what I do is just throw it into ad spend, keep the book on top of the charts. People funnel in prospects, and so it's much easier logistically to handle. And that was part of the agreement that we had at the very beginning. So it's something to take into consideration. It's when you're doing a book with 24 authors, a book that's selling at 99 cents, even if you hit the major list,
right,
there's no real profit in it.
Right.
You might get some profit through the links in the book when people sign up for your freebie and then end up working with you. And then that's valuable. Another thing that I did that I let people know about is after writing Grow Rich, I published Outsource Your Book, which is, I know, because this is what I do with Leaders Press, how you can get your book done without doing anything. And in this book, I listed all the authors that I've worked with for writing Grow Rich. I listed them here as resources where to go to get stuff done. So here, there are all the links.
That's amazing.
So, it was just sort of as a thank you again to, this book that I just launched. I included all your links. So now there are 2 books that I published with everybody's links in them. So I guess this is how you can then end up being, making additional revenue, because you'll funnel in a client, and different readers resonate with different personalities, and just from reading the chapters, you can feel like, oh, I really, I really think like Alexa, and then you sign up for your stuff, and somebody else will resonate more with another author. So I think this, the Write and Grow Rich book is also really good to get to know, the main influencers in the space really quickly.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things I want to tag onto that is that one, so first of all, the networking was amazing because you put 24 people who are leaders in this space together. And I am always a all tides rise kind of person, like when we support each other and work together, because not everybody who comes across for me is going to want to work with me or be a good fit for me, but they may be a 100% perfect fit for you, so as we support each other and share with each other, and I've become really good friends with some of the other people that were in this specific, like Amy Collins, who is also a speaker in this summit. I didn't know her before we worked together on this project. So from a networking, from a support, from a everything thing, it's such a good thing. But then to your comment about what comes that's totally aside from book sales. And I get this question a lot from people is, if I invest in the tools to publish my book, will I ever make that back from book sales? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong question because you may never see that money back in book sales. It may never happen. But what you may see is sales of your program, which is 5,000 times more than the cost of your book, or people who work with you on a one-on-one, or people who, whatever, who refer you to somebody who then hires you to speak at their event. Or so there's so many other ways. And thank you, because now people are buying your book. It was also a massive email list builder, because we did this freebie, the bonus, like people had to sign up with their email list to join our program or to download our freebie or whatever that was, so there are so many other things. And then you have all those thousands of people who you now have the opportunity to get to know better, to get in your programs, in your courses. So obviously this won't be the same thing for fiction writers necessarily, but for businesses, for entrepreneurs, for anybody, I mean, it's a great way to do it. And thank you for including links to us in the second book. That was an unexpected additional bonus. So thank you for that.
I'm glad you like it.
Yes. But I mean, the whole thing, like I just kind of sat back and watched, and that does not mean I didn't help promote. I did help promote, but I observed what you were doing while you were doing this, because I'd never hit a list before, and I'd never tried to do it like this with, well, I've never tried to do it, but I've never been a part of a group program that did it this way. And it was such a phenomenal learning experience. And I don't know, do you have any other maybe tips or pieces of advice or things that you learned in the process that you would want other people to be aware of if they're going to go down this road, either by themselves or in a group?
Yeah, I think it's important to build that network before you try to attempt something like this. So for example, about a year or a year and a half before, I ran a summit like you're doing now. And I made a lot of connections through that summit. So then, I already had a relationship with a number of people that I invited to the book. So, you start with the low-hanging fruit. So sort of people that know you, like you, trust you, that you've worked with before. You ask them, they will most probably say yes. And, if they're a big name, then when you reach out to people that are not directly inside your network, but maybe who've heard of you or perhaps haven't even heard of you, you can say, well, this big name is already in the project. So sort of it's happening whether you're in it or not. I have these names here. We're doing this. You want to be part of it or not? I mean, that's not how you frame it.
Right.
But, you're basically showing them that this is happening. So they might just miss out if they don't, if they don't join. So that's a strategy that I use. I first reached out to the people that I was closest with, and then I used their names, saying, I've already got 10 people who are influencers in the space, and I'm looking to have 25. So do you want to be part of it?
Yeah.
So that was the strategy. I think the networking is important. And so, I also, started from scratch. I wasn't born with a list of, author influencers in hand. I started, I left the corporate world in 2010, and I made all these connections from scratch. So when people ask me, how do I do this? Nobody knows who I am. I think a good way to do it is to ask yourself, how can I provide value to this person? You don't want to ever connect with somebody, asking them for a favor.
Right.
You want to do something for them first. And if they're an author, the easiest thing you can do for them is to review their book.
Good point.
You review their book and you say, oh, I loved your book. I shared it with my networks. It doesn't matter if your following is small. You still have some following. So review it, share the book on Facebook, Twitter, mail it, even if you have 10 subscribers, and tell that person, I find your book really valuable. I left you a review and I let my network know, and see what happens from there. Don't ask directly for a favor. I'm not a huge fan of swaps. Like somebody says, ooh, let's do an email swap. I'll mail if you mail. It sounds really off to me. I did get these offers sometime, but it's sort of icky. It's like a quid pro quo sort of approach, rather than your stuff is awesome, I want to share it, and then the law of reciprocity comes in, and they will want to share your stuff, and you could say it's the same thing, but it's not. Because instead of being transactional, it becomes, based on relationships. And you can do a transactional thing once, okay, I'll mail, you mail. What's your list size? What's your open rate? What's your click-through rate? Oh, no. Mine is higher. I won't mail. We're not the same size players.
Right.
So instead of doing that, just share something because you value it. So share it. And compliment the author or the creator of that. And it's sort of the go-giver mentality that when you do that, really good things start to happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's really phenomenal what happens when you take yourself out of the me, and put it into the us category, or even the you category. It's a great thing. All right. Well, we are wrapping this up, getting short on time, but I will make sure that all of these links are in the show notes, especially to your new book, because I am sure there are plenty of people who are listening to this now and thinking, to the summit in general, and thinking, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I thought I could self-publish a book and be a bestseller tomorrow and do it all by myself and not spend any money. And through this summit, they're realizing that is not the case. So they'll want to know who they can come to help them get all of these different things done for them. Is there any particular place that you would like to send people, a group or a website, or where's the best place to find you and connect?
Yeah, I think for the people watching the summit, that I'm getting a feeling of the type of person that resonates with it. This would be the best book to check out, How I Sold 80,000 Books. You can download a free copy at authorwisdom.com. And here I sort of show you how a book is, should be treated like any product launch. I used to work in the corporate world. So I use the marketing mix strategy, where I show that the book is, the product, place, price, and promotion. All of this has to be together and considered. And it's there's a lot of links, a lot of helpful information, especially for people who are doing their book for the first time. So, or people who are trying to get their book, done without making too many mistakes, without falling into too many traps. So this would be a great book, How I Sold 80,000 Books, at authorwisdom.com. And then the other ones are more Like this one is much more specific. This is for somebody, outsource your book is for somebody who wants a book, but they don't want to do it.
Right.
They want somebody else to do everything for them. So the typical person that we work with is a CEO in general.
Oh, hang on one second here. We'll pick right back up there again. Okay. Just start with the last one.
Yeah. Outsource your book is a completely different type of book. It's for the CEO of a company who, wants a legacy piece or a calling card for the company and doesn't want to do anything, but wants to have it done. So then we do it all. And I describe the process in this book. Then of course, Write and Grow Rich.
Of course.
We talked about Write and Grow Rich is a great book. You're getting a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller.
Lovely. And it's such a great cover too. We could talk about the cover because we had lots of conversation in the group about the cover.
We did. I think that will be for another time.
Yes, exactly. Oh, thank you, Alinka, so much. You're always so full of great information. I use your strategies all the time from your How I Sold 80,000 Copies. And it really, really does, especially the free download, the landing page, the list building. I mean, it's good stuff. So check out her books, check out her information. And thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexa. This is a fun summit.
Thanks.